Hey guys, it's Vince. Today in this video, we're going to be covering another client's Master Edition enclosure because I'm getting lots and lots of questions about this design, and I'm getting a lot of questions about what I'm about to discuss today. And of course, if I can kill two birds with one stone in showing you the actual enclosure in front of you, it'll hopefully make sense and you'll be able to implement a lot of the strategies that I've implemented with this design. So again, the Master Edition enclosure is one that actually has the GX16 3-pin connectors already installed for your switches. You have 4 of them on this side. You also have a GX16 3-pin connector on this side, as well as a GX16 6-pin connector implemented to be used for a spindle relay as well as spindle RPM manipulation through your VFD using one cable. Okay? Now, this particular client wanted a GX16 3-pin wired, one single one wired, and of course a relay then he wants included so he can wire that up himself. Now, I get questions all the time on, can you build this? Can you build it in this format? Can you build it in that format? I can build in any format that fits your budget. However, be realistic, and why I say that, in the workload you're about to attain. And the reason I say that is many guys don't realize when a system is fully built, like this is, if you go to install a relay afterwards, you're going to basically undo everything I've done. Mainly because all the wiring is already tied, all of everything here is already done and connected, so then you have to drill in the box, move all the wiring out of the way. I mean, there is some work involved. It's not a huge daunting task if you understand the gravity of what you're working with. If you're new to this, it can be very daunting. Okay? So the big thing here, this client of course understands that, but again, I just wanted to make that well known because these are questions I get all the time. Can you build custom? That's all I build is custom. There is not one system that fits all. It's always going to be, this is what I need, this is what I can afford. And that's what I build. So again, this system's unique in that he required one GX16 3-pin wired for his touch plate. And you can see here the graphic that I made, and it says 22 gauge double shielded cable diagram for GX16 female connector. Now with this enclosure, whenever I wire a connector, I also include a double shielded cable that will plug in to the GX16 male panel mount so that all the client has to do is attach the other end of the cable to his touch plate and he's set to go. Okay? Now, when he ever has to service this, and I've said this in previous videos, but I get a lot of questions on this, and if he ever has to service this cable, all the pin out wiring is right here. Pin 1 red, pin 2 black, pin 3 shield drain. So he already knows there is his allocation for the GX16 female connector that's mounted on the 22 gauge double shielded cable that will be plugging in and integrating into the back of this system. Now, the other thing I put on here is touch plate settings for Mach 3 is port 1, pin 13. Touch plate is using input 4 on the G540. He already knows if he sets those settings correctly to Mach 3, he's set to go. Okay, so this is all information, pre-done, all set to go. Now I'm going to rotate the system. I'm going to show you exactly what we did here. Because what makes the Master Edition more advanced, so to speak, is that it includes all of the engineering required to get the effect that you see right here, which is the proper one because, again, there is no daisy chaining. You see I have graphics here for a ground bus, which is this bar right here, and then over on this side we have the V-negative terminal splitter. Okay? Now you'll also see the graphic that I made here. And this is a new one, and I wanted to discuss this because I like this idea in that it helps all of you out there who want to wire in individual components yourself as far as accessories, and you'll be able to write down and allocate what wiring you use with the way I did this graphic. This graphic is not laminated. So therefore you can hand write in where you see a switch, a switch, a switch, and a spindle. He'll be able to hand write in any allocation he does for these switches because I don't know what wiring he's going to use or any client is going to use for that matter unless they contact me. So now the only thing that actually has the breakdown for the actual wiring is the touch plate. GX16 wiring diagram, pin 1 is white signal, G540, pin 2 black, pin 3 is again ground shield or shield drain, excuse me, and input 4 is for the G540. So input 4 on the drive is G540, and then everything else right here for this GX16 on this side, you can see it right here, is wired in, and he knows all of those wiring allocations. Okay, now I want you to look real close at the wiring coming in to our ground bus as well as our V-negative terminal splitter. If you look at the run on this, we're looking at about 9 inches tops. And that's only because I added some slack to the cable. I never run everything without slack because it's always better to have it longer than shorter. The other variable you see here, or I should say option, is I use ferrites. I don't know if you could see that. And she's getting it on the camera. Again, this is shot in 4K. These ferrites are used on the signal cable that will be used to transpire the signal to the G540. That goes to input 4. Okay, so if you watch this video, like many of you should be doing if you're building your own system, you can utilize everything I've done here in your own system, and it's very simple. Now you can also see right here that I'm using a thumb nut, and this entire module with the V-negative terminal splitter along with the ground bus is held in with one thumb nut on each side. So this is toollessly mounted. Okay, very easy to service. You can also see I use standoffs underneath the V-negative terminal splitter to allow for a height above the ground bus in case he decides to run wires in underneath. He's set to go. Now, a lot of guys will come back to me and say, you know, I see you're using an actual standoff on the screws, and they'll say, well, these are not that tight. They're not supposed to be that tight. All you're supposed to be doing is holding these in place. If you come over and jiggle these, of course you're going to get side-to-side movement because, again, we're laterally moving against the screw. Okay? Electrical is supposed to make contact. These are not supposed to be bolted down with 100 inch-pounds. Okay? They're supposed to be preferably maybe 10 to 15 ounce-inches of torque, and that's it. That's all they require. There is absolutely no stress on this design whatsoever. Okay? But looking at this, it all makes logical sense. Here is his ground bus. His ground is taking effect because these actual screws that come up, these prong screws that come up, so this ground bus goes through, is conductive to the chassis. The chassis is grounded by the power supply, which gets its ground right here, the green wire, coming in to the actual power supply. When the power supply is grounded and you're using a properly grounded power supply, the base of the power supply is grounded, therefore grounding the chassis as it's conductive, and then also then grounding the prong screws that are coming up. And as these prongs come up, these screws, they come in, and the only thing left to do is make contact with our brass bus bar, and you're all set. So once that happens, you'll then check your ohm reading to make sure you're at least 3 or under. In this case, you actually have between 0 and 1, and you're golden. That's all there is to grounding. Now, V-negative terminal splitter, just so we're on the same page, the V-negative terminal splitter is used because you're limited in the amount of terminals on a power supply. Most 48-volt power supplies typically have 3 on each side. Well, in this instance, using a terminal splitter, you never daisy chain. These are using circle 4mm ring connectors, and the screw goes through them. So these never come out. You'll destroy this cable before you pull it out. That's done for safety. Okay? But overall, using this method, everything here is serviceable. Everything here is allocated for the client. These are graphics that are done on professional acrylic-based adhesive vinyl. Okay, they are then laminated with Scotch Cal 3M 8518. It's $400 a roll. So when guys ask me, you know, why do I pay so much for what you do? I do not use crap. Everything I use is what I would use for myself, and the reason I do it is because I know it's going to last. As a matter of fact, as I stated earlier, this is not laminated. However, I will be including a piece of laminate so that once he writes everything in for his spindle, you can see this is all photorealistic imaging. I'm not doing, you know, we're not sitting here and doing cartoon images. These are all photorealistic images of what he's using. And then once he gets done writing in the allocation for everything, I'll give him a piece of laminate, I'll include it with the system, and he can go over it and it's protected. Okay? This is what vendors should be doing, in my eyes. I don't know why they don't. Actually, I do know why they don't, because then they lose money. The more I make you guys able to service your system, there's no reason you need me. So I'm just being honest, that's the truth. But the way I look at it is, I earn your respect because things are done correctly. This is the right way to do it, and it's simple. You can see the wiring, very, very short runs. Everything is short run. The Gecko wiring, everything is short run, right directly to the power supply. You have inches of wiring. Okay, I see guys running everything from the front to the back. We don't want to do that. We want to keep it as short as possible. The shorter the leads are, you're mitigating EMI. This is a very simple setup. And again, the V-negative terminal splitter and the ground bus is included with the Master Edition enclosure. On top of all of the GX16s are included along with the matching connectors. And again, everything is mounted in the enclosure. So all you have to do is understand soldering and understand that it's going to take the labor to wire it. In this instance, I did most of the wiring. So hopefully on this imaging, from what you guys can see here, you see how easy this is to do. Now again, I get questions on the standoffs used on top. Why do you use standoffs up here and why do I use standoffs over here? Well, if you look closely, if I don't use a standoff here, and it's a 1/4 inch standoff, I'm going to hit this screw. Same thing over here. If I use a standoff, the nuts mount above the screw, therefore giving me clearance, and therefore those screws can be used. Once again, the only way you're going to engineer something like this is doing it. You're not going to read a book and just say, hey, I can do this. Using a video, you can see it all done. And that's why I say my videos, a lot of you don't realize, I'm not getting paid by my YouTube channel. I'm not monetizing it. You don't see ads in my videos, over 200 of them. I'm doing this in the form of your knowledge. I'm trying to make you guys see if you use these methods, you're golden. So again, implement this in your own system, or once again, check out the Master Edition enclosure. Bottom line is, if you were to buy the enclosure, have it EMI dipped, do all the machining, include all of the bus bars and everything you see here as far as what's set up, and include the connectors, it's a really tough deal to beat when you include double shielded cable, because many of you already realize shopping double shielded cable is expensive. But seeing this set up, it makes a lot of sense. I'm also going to include another one of these graphics to the client so he can place this wherever he wants on the system, if he wants to run on the outside or maybe beside the system, and he'll have all this information when he's working on it. This way it just makes things easier, you know. This way you guys learn and are not afraid to work on it, and you see how simple this is once it's all done properly. So again, I hope the video has been helpful. I hope that you guys watch it over and over again. I hope you take notes, and I say that all the time because taking notes is imperative. You're never going to digest anything if you're not learning at 2 capacities, and I feel that writing things down is the way to go. It just helps with the visual effect, and you guys will take that over, carry it over to your own system, and you can go from there. So again, I hope the video's been helpful. If you guys have any questions, require quotes, message me direct at storm2313@gmail.com. You can also use the link, and it'll be on the screen, once again, to my eBay store. That'll be in the video description, and you'll be all set. So to all my subscribers, thank you guys. I love you.